Belfast is exploding. Masked men, burning homes, torched buses, a mass backlash over years of open borders and brutal attacks on locals, and the entire political establishment, from Keir Starmer in London to the bureaucrats in Brussels, rushing to the cameras to call it, surprise, surprise, racist. But here's what they won't tell you. The rage didn't come from nowhere. It came from years of being lied to. Years of being called xenophobes for asking basic questions. Years of watching their government import a crisis and then tell them it was progress. And now, it's not just Belfast, it's not just Britain. From the streets of Brussels to the suburbs of Amsterdam, from Solingen to Seville, ordinary Europeans are finally saying what their governments spent a generation trying to suppress, but the people are making it absolutely clear their voices will be silenced no longer. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. So let's start with what's actually happening in Belfast, because of course the legacy media is determined to bury the lead. So just days ago, a 30-year-old Sudanese man by the name of Hadi El-Odid, an asylum seeker living in Northern Ireland on a visa granted to him by the British government, pinned a 44-year-old NHS worker named Stephen Ogilvie to the ground on Kennard Avenue in North Belfast with a knife. Now, he didn't just stab him. He blinded him in the left eye. He carved deep wounds into his head, his face, and then, I kid you not, he tried to cut his head off. That was not a mugging. That was not a fight that got out of hand. Bystanders on the street, ordinary people out on a Monday night, watched in horror as this refugee seeker pressed a kitchen knife to Stephen Ogilvie's throat and began sawing. Witnesses could be heard on video screaming that he was trying to behead him. Now, fortunately, a local man rushed in to intervene and beat the attacker off the victim, but who, by the way, survived, but he did lose his left eye. His right eye was also damaged. He has deep slash wounds across his face, neck, back. But the footage went viral within hours. And when it did, something in the people of Northern Ireland, people who had already been living through years of open borders and rising tensions, something finally snapped. By Tuesday evening, hundreds had poured into the streets, smashing windows and doors, burning homes they believed housed immigrants. They torched a city bus. 12 police officers were injured. More than 24 families lost their homes. And in the midst of all the chaos, Britain's political class, as usual, blamed racism.
I don't think anybody should conflate any issues here. The issue that we saw over the course of the last number of nights has been pure racism in its vilest form. And we say very clearly no to racism in our society, and I believe that is where the vast majority of people are here. The vast majority of people here are good and welcoming and inclusive and value those people that work right across all of our sectors, in particular the healthcare workers that I was meeting with today.
Now, of course, the question that none of these political elite will answer is, how did a Sudanese man with no right to permanent residency end up on the streets of Belfast with a kitchen knife, assaulting a local? He came from Sudan to Paris and then to Dublin and then claimed asylum in Belfast. The system took him in throughout the entire process. The system gave him a visa. The system that woman that you just heard blame racism, the system that woman represents, she put him on those streets. The system put them on the streets. And the people who built that system are the very ones who are calling you a racist for asking why. Why was this guy allowed in our country? You see, this is why more and more people are leaving the system altogether. In fact, there's a window open right now, at this moment in history, that's actually never existed before. And it's not going to stay open forever. And the patriots who are already on the other side of this are not waiting for permission from the system to provide for their families. Because of AI, it has never been easier or faster to create additional income than it is right now. What used to take months, a team, a budget, years of experience, it now literally takes hours. The playing field just got leveled. And regular families, not Silicon Valley, not Wall Street, regular families are the ones who can actually win right now if they move. Now, a friend of our show and co-author of one of my books, Joseph Aaron, saw this window and he made a commitment. Every single member of his family would have their own income stream where AI does the vast majority of the work. So his 18-year-old son, his 16-year-old son, his 21-year-old daughter, even his wife, real businesses, real income built with AI. And now Joseph and his kids are opening this up. They're hosting a completely free 5-day live experience on Zoom where they're going to sit down with you and help you build out your own business with AI. Our team attended and people were building entire income streams at the press of a button. It was astonishing. Folks who had never touched AI in their life. It was one of the most remarkable things I've witnessed. And if you're worried about the tech, don't be. If you could speak English, you can direct AI. That is literally all it takes. If you or someone in your family could use additional income or needs to replace income, this window is open right now, but it's not going to stay open forever. Click the link below and join Joseph and his family at their free upcoming event. They'll help you build an income stream where AI does the work for you. Don't let your family be the ones who found out too late. Click on that link below right now. Unfortunately for these political elite, Belfast is just the match. The powder keg has been filling for years across the entire European continent. Let me take you back to August 2024, Solingen, Germany. A Syrian man walks into an open-air festival celebrating the city's 650th anniversary. He's got a knife. He targets the necks and upper bodies of festival goers, specifically targeting Christians, according to prosecutors. He kills 3 people. He injures 10. And who sent him the order? The Islamic State, through Telegram, where he had pledged his loyalty in a recorded video. ISIS claimed responsibility within 24 hours. This man had come to Germany as a refugee through the system. The German state took him in. They gave him shelter. They gave him resources. And he used that welcome to massacre people at a birthday party for a German city. And again, true to form, the German government that allowed this to happen called anyone who warned about this a far-right extremist. And we could go on and on. Just this past New Year's Eve in Brussels, hooded men in immigrant neighborhoods fire off Molotov cocktails. They set cars ablaze, pelt firefighters and paramedics with stones. More than 150 people arrested, most of them under the age of 20. Or the Netherlands. All available riot police in the entire country deployed simultaneously. Molotov cocktails thrown at police, more than 1,200 people injured, 2 people dead. And near Amsterdam, a magnificent 19th century Christian church, the Vondelkerk, engulfed in flames and destroyed. A church burned to the ground on New Year's Eve. And then, of course, France, where we just saw more than 1,700 vehicles vandalized in a single night. This isn't random disorder. This is not youth excess, and it's certainly not the result of racism among Europeans. This is the predictable result of importing millions of people who've been told, often by radical preachers, by extremist networks, by the ideology of political Islam, that they owe no loyalty to the nations that took them in. And the Global Terrorism Index makes the picture even starker. Terrorist attacks jumped 63% in the West in 2024. Europe was the most effective region. Incidents literally doubled to 67 attacks. And to make matters even worse, 1 in 5 terror suspects was a minor. So why did this happen? How did Europe get here? Because for 30 years, the globalist elite told a deliberate lie. They told Europeans that mass immigration was an economic necessity and that anyone who questioned that was a bigot. That the concerns of ordinary citizens, the man watching his neighborhood change, the woman afraid to walk home at night, the parent pulling their daughter out of a public school because groups of young men were harassing her, those concerns were xenophobic and racist. They built an entire architecture of legal, bureaucratic, and social pressure to silence dissent. In the UK, people were arrested actually for quoting Churchill. In Germany, entire political parties like the AfD, now the number one most popular political party, but nevertheless, they were put under surveillance for opposing Merkel's open border experiment. In Brussels, in the EU, Hungary and Poland were financially punished for refusing to take migrant quotas. But all of that is coming to an end. What's happening in Belfast and increasingly all over Europe is the rise of what scholars call civilizational populism. The people of Northern Ireland didn't riot because they hate. They rioted because their government has spent years telling them lies. They spent years telling them that their streets don't belong to them in any meaningful way. That the culture they inherited, the churches, the customs, the community is just one option among many and no particular claim to priority. That's what the globalist project does at its core. It's not just open borders. It's the dissolving of the very concept of a home worth defending. And when people feel their home is being dissolved and their government calls them racist for minding, eventually, the people are going to rise up and they're going to take their nation back. The people of Belfast, like the people of Sullivan, like the people of Amsterdam, are not extremists. They're a civilization trying to remember who it is. And they're not alone. In March, the European Parliament passed something extraordinary. They actually did the unthinkable. The returns regulation, a sweeping deportation framework that's completely reformed the continent's deportation structure, passed overwhelmingly in the EU Parliament. Germany announced immediately after the passage the repatriation of up to 800,000 Syrian refugees. 9 European nations have now passed some form of the burqa ban. Italy, under Giorgia Meloni, pioneered the deportation hubs in Albania. The same Brussels that's punished Poland and Hungary for defending their borders has now more or less adopted, actually word for word, the very policies Poland and Hungary were punished for. The populist patriots were right. They were right about the knife attacks. They were right about New Year's Eve. They were right about Solingen. They were right about Belfast. And now, even the institutions that called them fascists are more and more implementing their agenda. That's not a defeat. That is precisely what civilizational awakening looks like.